Thank you for tuning in to Androna Talks Radio, gathering as one in our sovereign truth from a galactic perspective, exploring our world with new ideas, knowledge, and a promise of a better future. Galactic discussions for galactic-minded people. Androna Talks.
Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Androna Talks Radio. I'm being joined here with Chris, and we're going to talk about updates regarding the yellow vests. So let's get in, and there's so much happening right now in Europe, and we're just going to touch on some of the topics most recently occurring over there now. So hello Chris, how you doing?
Hi Jess, it's good to be here. I'm doing good. What about yourself?
Pretty good. Over here is Memorial Day, and people are celebrating, some of the remembering our soldiers and remembering family members and so forth. So it was, one of the American holidays.
Barbecue Day, yeah.
Barbecue Day, yeah, for many.
Yeah.
For others, it's visiting the cemetery to see loved ones. Recognize them, putting flowers out or something.
Well,
different things, spending time with family.
It's a quiet day, that's for sure. There's barely no traffic here. It's nice.
Yeah.
But that is not reflective of the craziness going on in the world these last few weeks.
Right. No, we've had, just over the weekend, there's been a few significant things happening. For example, Theresa May resigns. That was kind of strange. I mean, I guess it's not unpredictable, but
no, it was
the pressure was on her, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well, she had to hold on to the last minute, and I mean that whole thing seems to be like, I wouldn't say a random decision that suddenly out of nowhere she woke up a morning saying, after 2 months of having the whole country asking her to resign, suddenly she resigned a few days before the elections, the European elections. I mean, all that is part of the strategy they have. But we're going to go a little bit deeper in that a little later. But
I did see, there was a comedian, I guess, that does a lot of kind of comments on the side regarding, or off the cuff. He's very straightforward, very blunt. I asked some of my friends that were from England, well, what is your opinion of this man? They said, well, technically he's regarded as a comedian, but he was bold. While he's talking, he's fixing his tie, and I can't even think of his name right now, but I haven't even looked up to see what he has to say. I thought it might be interesting because he was making a lot of complaints about Theresa May at the time. And you want the people in the UK to thrive and do well, and just like many of the other nations in Europe right now, they're having their share of challenges, and so you're seeing that there are others that are sort of rising up, trying to speak out, trying to wake people up, and think about what's going on, and feeling like that push and pull, or the tug of war that's happening regarding going along with what the EU is, the expectations of the EU, and how to redefine their nation. And so it's hard to watch, wonderful people there, and but very bright, always on top of everything what's going on. But you can feel the tension.
Yeah, we can cut the tension with a knife, as we say.
Yeah. So talk about cut the tension with a knife. Here's another one. Marine Le Pen. It's Marine, right? Marine Le Pen.
Mm-hmm.
voted
Marine.
to the European Parliament. Was that a surprise?
No, I was talking about that months and months ago,
Right.
pretty much on the very first report we did that, Macron was. So Macron wants to have that fight with her because most of the time people will vote for him because she's supposedly portrayed by the media as a extremist right, which is racist, anti-Semite and all that stuff. That was her father. But anyway, months ago was explaining that obviously, the Yellow Vest was triggered, part of the plan of some of these deep state, whatever you call it. And so the whole tax rising up was done so that they would trigger the Yellow Vest, and the Yellow Vest took the bait, and definitely, and even if they have a absolute legit reason to go out there in the street and protest, but it's almost like a momentum that they're using, right? They let the Yellow Vest 28 weeks in a row going in the street and asking the same thing over and over and over and be beat up and so on. In the meantime, as I said, Macron was doing a supposedly great debate for 3 months, and he needed 3 months to do that. So to go to every city, talk to all the mayors, but certainly no Yellow Vest, okay? All the people he chose to talk to, people that wouldn't challenge him in his program. And he was preparing his European campaign, literally 3 months before anybody. That's illegal, by the way. But everybody saw the game through his game. So what's happening now is all these populist parties are rising everywhere in Europe. And I'm not talking just France with Le Pen. You have also in Italy, you have one in just got elected, also rising very strongly in Netherlands, in Belgium, in Hungary, in Slovenia. I mean, it's in Germany, even Sweden got the election shifted from the Democrat Party to something more right populist party. So, I mean, all the countries are shifting into these populist parties. And some of the people might say, well, that's great, Chris, these people want their sovereignty. Yes, it is. It sounds great. But the problem is it's still part of the plan, part of the agenda. Because if you really look deeper into all these different parties, all of them have pretty much been visited by the Chinese president a few months ago. He made a little tour in Europe. He went to Italy, went to France, went to Germany, went in different places and meet with all these, at least not all, but some of these leader of the populist parties. So, I mean, again, it's another part of their agenda. And I couldn't understand what was really the goal behind it, other than, Le Pen. We know Marine Le Pen as much as 4 years ago. She was saying that she wanted Brexit and she wanted to be out of the European community. This time she has changed her goal completely. Now she wants to stay, but like in every elections, they say, oh, but we're going to change it from within. No, they do that for 40 years. Once they're elected, they just continue the agenda of the EU. That's it. So at least,
so wait a minute. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but you said that originally she wanted the Brexit, and now she's voted in to the Parliament. Is this a tactic, or is this she's flipping?
She's flipping because she got entangled now with all these LICRA and Zionist groups in France, and she's, for example, the security she has is composed of members of those Zionist groups in France. So she's completely entangled with it right now. So she's under their thumb, pretty much. So they want to build that Europe. They don't want the countries to be sovereign. Absolutely not. So she was very, attractive program-wise for a lot of people years ago, and she was literally like demonized by the media. Now she is everywhere on every news station, every channel. It's like they obviously don't demonize her anymore.
No,
that should tell you something right there.
Right. So she has sold out. You're saying, she pretty much.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
and
she's
not
not
only
the one
that,
that.
but they're setting the stage for her. What is it? Her cousin, for
Yes,
yeah,
her
her
niece,
niece.
Maréchal,
Yeah.
Marion Maréchal, yeah, to maybe go for the French elections.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is set up, as I always said, we were talking about earlier just before we start recording here, but I mean, these people, these beings that are in charge of these agendas are working on these agendas for a very, very, very long time. I could go to 1898, which is, the first Zionist treaty in or meeting in Geneva, when all that start to, we can talk about different groups that are, planning these things. But anyway, it is not something that they decided overnight, and they have patience. And most of them are not even human; they jump from body to bodies, so
Right.
they have time. And they make sure, and by the way, they have the technology also to go back in time and in the future and all these things, so they can see pretty much what's happening, and they can change things as, it's very easy at that point. But what I want to talk here is something important, a report that I saw a week ago from a lady that's a jurist, a lawyer, that obviously have noticed a change in the legislative body of France, realizing that the French Constitution has been pretty much, I wouldn't say abolished, but destroyed on the 1st of January 2017, like you would say the Bill of Rights here, the American Constitution. And therefore, things are changing very drastically since then. And that's, of course, since Macron, this is all connected to that whole Macron situation. Now, she's doing a lot of videos when she's literally talking about different things that most of the people don't want to hear.
What is her name? She's she's in England right now. Isn't that correct?
She's in England. Yeah,
she had to get out, but even still, she's kind of looking over her shoulder while she's talking.
She had to leave France because they were arresting her all the time and beat her up and, putting her in jail for 48 hours with no food, no water, then release her, and then 2 weeks later the same over and over and over. So because she was definitely treating subject that the French government didn't want her to talk about. So now she's in England. And a lot of these guys are moving to England. They have more freedom over there. There is a website that's supposedly pretty free, and these guys are talking about lots of stuff. So anyway, the report she did from there, and she was obviously in a sense of urgency because she was like, listen, you guys need to watch this video and share it as fast as possible before it's deleted. Okay, so I watched it, and what she was saying in other words is that there was an article in The Guardian, which is a UK newspaper, where Angela Merkel made a very strange statement. And here's the statement, that all the treaties that were made between European countries, especially the US and Japan and and Russia, especially the winning countries of the Second World War against Germany, all these treaties that for the last 17 years we're holding are not null and void at this point. That right now the EU cannot function based on these treaties anymore because they cannot let themselves be bullied by the US, by China, and by the Russian. That those are the enemy right now, which is very strange in one hand, that to think that she thinks in these terms, that supposedly Russia is an enemy when she just signed a huge contract for energy. They need a lot of energy, and she could choose between working with the US or Russia. And when everybody was, beating up on Russia, saying, Russia Gate and Russia this and Russia that, she signed a contract with the Russian President Putin and for billions of dollars a month of natural gas. And President Trump was very upset about that. But anyway, so on one hand, here she is, the whole country, and the whole energy of the country is depending on the Russian, but in the same time, she's declaring that the big enemy now are Russia, China, and the US, and therefore the treaties that were done at the end of the Second World War are not in existence anymore. That right now there is a big change, the world is changing, and it's time for moving forward and to create not a European community. She doesn't say it like that, but pretty much if you read between the lines, it's create a Uber, like the German wanted to do, the Uber Deutschland, which is the great Germany. And remember that the EU...
This is that article that we saw.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you go back in history, the German went to that Uber Germany, and of course, supposedly they lost the war, but they didn't. They didn't lose the war, because one of their Nazi guys is the very one that, and well, the 4 or 5 people that are at the origin of the EU are all working with, in some way, shape, or form, with the Nazi government, or were working with the Nazi government.
Let's clarify this, because it's the ETs working with a specific group that we would identify as this elite Nazi group, who are not necessarily helping the German people, because the German people are very much, not in the know, or not informed properly, just like we're not informed in the U.S. or anyone else. So it's unfortunately that they're the ones that are taking the brunt for it, where this elite military group is playing games and literally running circles around the world, with their technology and knowledge. I mean, so in the sense that they won the war, World War II, when they were circling around the White House in advanced aircraft, very highly advanced, letting everyone know that they had the capacity to outdo anything that the U.S. government or the European community could even challenge. So in that sense they won, but the people still ended up having to go through the ridicule and the suffering and the pain of everything else. So, and it's just like anything. If you're in a government, you're subjected to your rulership, and I say that as an American. I mean, there's things that our leadership has done that is a reflection on me as a citizen, even though I had no say in it whatsoever. So, we have to, identify that this Germany's taken a lot. The people, there's people that listen to what we're saying, and some of the shows that we've done, and they understand the difference. I think the rest of the world doesn't fully understand that they have no say in this, and whatever Merkel is doing, and it's the same thing of whatever Trump is doing, whatever anyone else is doing that's in leadership. We're not informed until sometimes much later of what's happening.
And it's right. You do absolutely good correction here, because it's really, the war is not between Germany and the other countries. It's between humans and non-humans in each of these countries. These are the beings that are pretty much ruling Europe and most of some countries in the world. So going back to what's that article was saying is that obviously, so these treaties are over. That changes the whole dynamic geopolitically speaking, because they are laying out pretty much the next step now. The next step, and she's talking about that, is the Fourth Reich.
Right, which was surprising to hear someone talk about the Fourth Reich, because we're supposed to be the extremist conspiracy theorists, and we've been talking about this for a while, and now you have someone who's in the mainstream that's referring to the Fourth Reich, which was kind of interesting to hear this. But it does, it takes the rest of the world, I don't know, another 10 to 20 years to figure some things out that is pretty obvious. And so so
she was saying that this is the laying out the next step, and the first thing, you cannot bring that new super European state where countries don't exist anymore before breaking down all these, all the foundation of how the European Community was founded in the past. It was founded on the very fact of these treaties between all the winning countries, supposedly protect against Germany and Italy and all these countries that were working with Hitler. So now this being broken, that she decided, by the way, she's not even the head of the EU. She's just the head of the most powerful country of the EU. But she talks like if she's in charge. So her and Macron are working on that for a very long time. How do I know that? Well, it was in the news. For those, who were looking at the French news, there is a treaty that was signed called the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle that was maybe 3 months ago, where Macron literally signed that treaty for a European army, where they will literally merge all the armies of each countries that now, have a Belgian army, French army, Italian army, and so on. So each country have their own sovereign armies. And the idea here was, by signing that treaty, first was to give away the French sovereignty completely to Germany. That's one. So France cannot make any decision on a government level without the approval of the German government. That's very strange. The second part is, of course, the creation of a European army to fight against the new enemy, which is United States, Russia, and China. And again, why Russia? Since they provide all the gas for Germany. Makes no sense. Something is up here. But it's great. The narrative is very enticing for the people. So they can be like, oh yeah, we need to really definitely go for that. We need to protect ourselves. That's just a game they play. So big army, that means, and it's happening. It's happening. How do we know? Because when the Yellow Vest started up here, for a few weeks of the Yellow Vest, maybe the third or the fourth weekend, they start to see German forces, army forces coming into France, crossing the border of France with these vehicles that were supposedly police vehicles, with the European, you see it's a circle of stars. The vehicle is blue, with a circle of gold stars, and crossing the French borders. And the Yellow Vests were like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Well, next thing you know, we have all these cops coming into Europe, into France and in Belgium. They have the same uniform, and in other countries the same. They have that very RoboCop uniform. It's uniform everywhere, pretty much in every country.
They call it the RoboCop, right?
She's talking. Yeah, I was always calling them the RoboCop, but she's using the same name, which was kind of funny. So the idea is to create one police that will be super state. European police, one army, one navy, one air force. The French Legion, which is, by the way, if you hear it, French Legion was under the sovereignty of the French government, right? It's now not anymore French. It's completely moved into the European government. Now the European government is in charge and can, pretty much order the French Legion to do what they need to do. Now they're the European Legion. They merge, based on what I've heard, with pretty much the Spanish Legion. So they are literally taking the sovereignty of every armies, every police of every country, and slowly merging into one big army and one big police. Now, this is for me very interesting to see that the Yellow Vest and that lady was saying that obviously some of the police that were the anti-riot police in the Yellow Vest protest didn't speak French. So obviously they have practiced, like a beta test, their police coalition or new coalition with different countries having the same uniform, different police of different countries into France with the same uniform. Some of them don't even speak that, because they were wondering why when we talk to them they don't answer back, and they are so violent. I mean, it's really crazy. Well, now it's known that obviously some of these guys from other countries were wearing the French police uniforms with no identification number, no names, no nothing, and it started to be very clear that they pretty much trained and practiced in France with the Yellow Vest. Now, I'm not surprised. It happened in the 30s and the 40s when the German invaded Europe. I mean, you need to be living in Europe to know that, but the French police was suddenly under the governance of the Gestapo. Same for the Dutch, same for the Belgian, Luxembourgish. Italy was definitely working with Spain. Same. I mean, every country in Europe, the police of every country were working with the Gestapo. So they were collaborating. So that was kind of also like a as I call it, iPhone 1 version, and now we are at iPhone 10. This
but
is the new version.
It's like kind of like this. It's sort of like the hidden Big Brother type of thing.
Oh yes.
You're saying that if something happens in Europe, you figure out who the Big Brother is because that's where the military shows up, or the police force, or whatever it is, to try to pull things together. So when the government is not capable of managing what's going on in the nation, and they bring someone else in, you see where the power comes from. And that's revealing.
Yeah, and the thing is, there is no gain without pain. You know, as these idiots, you know, are always saying. Literally, what they need to create, that fake tension, that fake enemy, supposedly, that they create, you know, from the the blueprint they have since a long time, and they need to create that enemy. Of course, in the 40s was easier because, well, it was obvious, right? All the countries were invaded by the Germans, or by those in charge of the Germans, all these Nazis, Third Reich. Now it's a little bit more subtle because there is no war. But of course, it's done in a way where people, each countries don't really know what's going on in other countries. They all live in a fishbowl. France only have French news. Same for Holland. Same for Belgium. Same for other countries.
Yeah.
So
this is what I'm saying is you see the underlying power.
Oh yeah.
Because the underlying power is not obvious. It's never out in the forefront. When you're really in power, you don't have to prove you're in power.
Exactly.
You just when something needs to be done, you're the one that shows up, right?
Yeah. So they need that narrative of there is an enemy, and of course the enemy is the U.S., China, and Russia, which is completely bogus. Again, I'm going to repeat myself. Maybe people's going to be Chris, you said for the third time, but please, people, think about it. Why create Russia as an enemy when you're buying all your energy from that same country? Your country depends on Russia now.
Right. And what about these? Oh, sorry.
No, I was saying if Putin decides to shut the faucet of natural gas, Germany is back to Stone Age.
Right. And what about these exercises that are happening in Europe right now? Right?
Yeah, well,
so they have all these military exercises with the commentary of, this is in the event of an aggression coming from Russia and China. And it's said on the exercises, I have them listed. Let's see, I can
all the countries, yes. And of all the countries participating to it through the NATO is the US. Wait a minute. I'm a little lost here. I thought the US was an enemy. So, okay, we know there is a deep state in the US, as in every country, but most of the time in the US, they start losing serious power. The only place in the world when they have still very strong hold is Europe.
Yeah,
the Rothschilds and all these guys. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so here's the summer exercises that they're doing. Immediate response. There's the Saber Guardian, the swift response. It says U.S. Army Europe is conducting and/or participating in a series of 9 exercises in May and June 2019 in the Black Sea and Balkan regions. Each exercise is a separate entity, but many utilize a common scenario focused on furthering partner capacity while improving interoperability and readiness. So they get the exercises the operations, and I talk about this in one of the reports.
So this is why, for me, it's a joke. They really take people for idiots, because here is Europe signing deals with China, Germany buying gas from Russia, and doing all this exercise with the US. But hey, wait a minute. No. They're the enemies. We need to build a huge army to protect ourselves against them. Really? I know that the bigger the lie is, most likely people will believe it. But I mean, that's kind of, I don't know. Maybe I'm not wired the same way as other people. But for me, there's something that doesn't match here.
Yeah. And no, it doesn't, because it's like we're told, that this group or that group is our enemy.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's just like you used to see pictures of Bush hanging out with Bin Laden, having dinner and stuff.
Yeah.
It's it's like
they need to create fake enemies to keep the narrative alive and creating tension and fear, the same way they are pushing for supposedly, this is it, the war in Iran is going to happen. No, it's not going to happen. The deep state, all these fuckers want that to happen. I'm sorry, bad word here, but sometimes I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit passionate.
Yeah, no, it's kind of, it's strange, because they're sitting there, sharing a glass of wine, having their steak or whatever they're eating, and just like it's a beautiful white tablecloth, and
wonderful
some of them look like they're all relaxed in a nice little seat, cushioned seat, and sitting back, and I don't know if they smoke a pipe or whatever they were doing, or a cigar or something. It just looks so casual, like like almost like good friends, and then you're like, I mean, this doesn't look like, when governments just are doing their policy meetings and they're gathering together. It looks a little bit more comfortable. And then you find out, we're going to war with them and they're horrible and this and that, and you're like, what? Well, it doesn't make any sense.
What's happening on the bigger scale is happening on a smaller scale. The smaller scale, you see, for example, I was watching some of these debates in France, right? All these leaders of all political parties fighting with each other, insulting each other, you're this, you're that. And then you realize they're all part of the same Freemason groups and having dinner all the time together. I mean, what is that for a joke?
Yeah. I mean, they're a lot closer. They're a lot more familiar with each other than they want to admit, and all the different conversations that we'll never know about or hear. That
and they need. Oh, sorry.
But then I don't know. I mean, I know it's necessary that there's communication, but what's the purpose of all of this?
Control. Yeah. We need to sell fear. We need to make it complex, and we need to give the illusion to the people that there's a lot of different choices. No, there is not. There's only one choice, their choice. But there's another choice, the choice of the people, the choice of the humans that want to regain their sovereignty and don't want to buy in that bullshit anymore.
Right.
I mean, this is. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little.
Yeah. All right. So, just to add a little bit more drama to this. You bringing in these police covertly, which everyone's like, well, I guess we can figure out that they're not French, because the French people, unlike the U.S., we're a melting pot, right? So you see someone. There's many different shades of skin tone and different cultures, and sometimes you really can't tell, because it's such a blending. But in France, they know. They can tell that this is not, someone that's from our nation. And so you can't hide that. But now let's go another layer. And then we have this crazy, completely crazy situation of the black vests coming in from Africa, right? And now it's not only what's happening in regarding France in their policies, but we're talking about international air travel. International air travel that made an exception to, I don't know how many people, a couple hundred people,
Yeah,
to come in without undocumented. Not even, I don't know, did they even, probably didn't even have to go through the regular passport procedure.
nope. And the police
An
let them go.
immigration procedure that everyone else in the entire world needs to go through. But an international airport gave them a pass to walk through, and we're like wondering how is this happen and how does this change the future of travel? Because I know people that for hardly no reason at all who cannot travel to another country. There's absolutely zero reason other than, just because someone had the power to say no. But yet you see that they're allowing this whole group of people to come in and demand that they should be able to not have to go through the passport procedure. And no one even blinks an eye. They're just in. And here's the other thing is the military, who is highly abusive, who's dragging females down the street by their hair, and we have seen footage like that, knocking over elderly women, and they're afraid in the airport. You hear these RoboCops, they're afraid in the airport and how to handle this.
That is the thing. I mean, if you go against French Yellow Vest, it's okay. The media will tell you that you're a good cop. But if you go after refugees, now we have a problem. You're a racist. You cannot touch the people come from other countries.
Yeah, but is it because of the? I mean, I don't know if it has anything to do with what race they are.
No.
I think it has to do with someone had already gave them a pass.
Of course. Of course.
That's something that is an international law, not just for the government. So if Macron said, hey, I've got about 200 friends from this country, and just have them, or this military, I hired these hired guns to come into the country and just create chaos for the Yellow Vests or whatever he did, and had them come in, that's one thing. But without documentation, I think the entire international travel should be involved, because if I have to carry a passport and everyone else has to carry a passport, why is it that these people are not required to carry a passport?
Oh, not only they don't want to carry a passport, but they were singing in French that France doesn't belong to the French people.
Right, but even still, right, so they come in, and now they can commit any crime that they want, right? So there's a license to kill, there's a license to do whatever you want. Because no one even knows who your name is, no one knows who you are. You're living amongst people, and without, proving your identity or anything like that. And now I'm not like saying, hey, we need surveillance and all that kind of stuff, but I'm just saying everyone has to, have some kind of accountability, right? But how is it that international?
That was organized, yes. I mean, it was organized. That is part of the whole blue book, the whole playbook of open society controlled by Soros. They do the same crap here in the US. They do the same crap in Sweden. They do the same stuff in every country, right? Where we need to, they create all these wars. So all these people have to go somewhere. They invade, of course, different countries like Europe for any problem, any situation, geopolitically, war.
We never did this. We never did this for refugees.
Oh, well, now it's that's a new thing now.
Yeah, but there was a protocol that they had to go through, and many times they were waiting somewhere in camps until they could go anywhere. And so when is it that they became a priority over everyone else, unless this is a type of military, because they were all males. Is that correct?
Yes.
I didn't see any females there, and I didn't see any
All
children.
males. Nope.
So you say refugees. You know, this is not Ellis Island, where they came over into New York and they had their families and they were poor and they were struggling and they were trying to figure out, you know, a new way of living. That it didn't look like that to me. It looked like a military group that came in. So are these refugees? Because I've heard that also in Sweden. When they brought them over, they were all males, and they were of the age of military, and they were armed and this and that. And so you're saying, you know, are they, who, oh, you, like you said, Soros is bringing military in, right?
Well,
and even like in south of the border here, and you know, coming from Mexico, that was also something that was said, that it was, they started bringing in children and women, but I think initially it was all males, same thing.
Oh. Yeah, pretty much 90% are between, I think, like 16 or 18 and 35 years old.
Ready for battle.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not, and when you say you don't have compassion for the people that are coming in that are poor, that's not the demographic that we're looking at. We're looking at an entirely different thing of invasion. It is saying we surrender. We have to surrender to these groups that are coming in, and it's never been done that way before. What has happened to our world? Who is running the world? Who is paying for everything? And who is making these determinations?
Well,
this is a project no one's talking about. Yeah, this is something that no one's talking about.
No,
is how they're getting away with it. This was not the typical protocol. I remember how many different times when there were wars in different areas, and then you know, like a group of people that were being persecuted would end up, you know, migrating to a local nation, and through the you know, the grace of the nation, they would kind of welcome them in, and then if it was more than they can handle, then another nation would help. I mean, that's the way it was done in the past. This is something completely different. I don't think it resembles anything to do with
it almost
refugees.
Seems like there's an overlay of realities here, because it's completely different. This is not the world I knew when I grew up. I remember where I come from. If you were an illegal, I mean, they were sending you back home within 8 hours. It was impossible to stay without papers. But this is part of the whole UN agenda, you know, the 2021 agenda, and the Marrakesh Treaty that just signed a few months ago to bring, I don't know how many millions of people from Africa into Europe. It's a way to dilute completely the sovereignty, the history of those countries, and bring a different culture, different religion, and that's it. I mean, whatever was there before once doesn't exist anymore. They might say, oh, it happened a lot in history. Yes, maybe because it's the same beings behind all that all the time.
But that's usually a tyrannical group that comes in and just takes over other nations. That's, I mean, it's just a roundabout way of doing it. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. And then on top of that, the tyrant, instead of being overt about what they're doing, is they're hiding. So you have no figurehead to point at. It's very slick. Think about it.
Yeah, no, definitely. They're hiding, not so much anymore. So, still to find them one by one, but obviously those who are in charge of those things might have human suits, or at least illusion of human suits down here, but obviously they're working from different levels that are, you know, higher dimension, or
it's
sometimes even too deep.
It's very slick.
It is, and I mean, it's complex, of course. It's not as easy as people might think. There's a lot of different groups that are involved in all this, but
they have to do it this way. If they come right out and say we've taken over the world, essentially, or you know, this is a one world order now. This is the new mud flood. we're gonna cause catastrophes. We're gonna do this and that. They're not gonna come out and say that. They're not gonna, you know, send you a memo, write you a letter.
No, it's easier. It's the end of the world in 12 years because
Well,
someone said it.
Yeah, I have my new gene pool of, this and this group of people, and I feel like, I don't think I want anyone else here, or this group over here we don't want. And so they're self-appointed gods.
Yeah.
As usual.
Yeah, it's all about control, they want to have control and power on the planet. And of course, the only problem is the humans. I mean, that we need to get rid of them.
Oh, the stupid humans, they need to be under control. Let's put them in their proper little cubbies and have them,
and
obey
certainly we have
everything
to
that we say.
Yes, we need to make sure they never realize that they have a divine sovereignty. I mean, we need to make sure that, make them believe that they have no choice, and we know best for them, right? That's their motto. Because everything they do, of course, is to help. Okay, they help these refugees, they help this, they help that, but at the end of the day, people don't understand what the real goal is behind it. It's the destruction of humanity as divine sovereign beings, right? Mm-hmm. And now with technology, of course, and the 5G, I'm sorry, I'm very upset with that 5G bullshit here, but it's the next step, we need everybody to be like in a hive mind, all humans to be connected, the internet of everything. So when you put all these layers together, all these pieces of puzzles together, on one hand you have all these immigration waves going from one continent to another to pretty much dilute everything that existed before, right? Sovereignty and families unit and all that, religion, all that, okay? As we say in French, if you put too much water in your wine, there is no more wine, it's just water. But that's what they do pretty much. And it's not new, they've done that in the past, just now they go and they amp up their agenda. They really create a momentum that's now very visible on many different aspects, from different angles. They're doing it. This is why it becomes more obvious. But for me, it's so obvious. It's war against humans. Point. If I have to really synthesize that in one sentence, it's really what it is. And it's about time for us to wake up and to realize that we can change everything very fast if we understand what we truly have. I remember, and I will repeat it, Rodin said one day, this planet has a divine goal in this galaxy, divine purpose. Well, guess what? What's connected to Earth? Humans. Humans have also a divine purpose in this galaxy. But it's time for them to remember who they are. It's not easy with all the bullshit they pull on us, that's for sure.
No.
But we can't change things, so I mean.
We can't be in fear.
Oh no.
There are those that are right on the firing line. They're right out there, and they're putting themselves on the line. They're really making a very strong stand. And some of them are paying for it. They're getting in trouble. There are those of us that can have this discussion in a very safe way and recognize what's going on and not to go into any kind of riot or uproar or whatever. It's just more or less, you have to really remember that we are divine sovereign beings and that we're not supposed to end up this way in a place of the continual slave system, the New World Order, the hive mind. And none of this is supposed to be our destiny. There are those that really want this, and trust me, there are other realities that they are more than welcome to go to. And I could definitely talk to someone about that on the other dimensions and to the councils and make sure that they all get to go there. Because if they really need to have that experience, they can do that. But only those that are trying to enforce it on others should be the ones to experience it first before they are able to enforce it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, I don't think any one person is a decision maker in any of this. I think it's an agreement that we are all in agreement, that we all have a sovereign voice. If no one does anything, then you can't blame anyone because no one did anything. They just went along with it.
Yeah.
And so you have to speak up. You have to use your energy to create the reality that is supposed to be ours in the first place. It's the fear that tells us that we are not to embrace what is ours, that someone is taken from us.
Yeah.
We should never be in that place of fear. There's
No.
no reason for it. If you are truly connected in, like I said, if you're communicating with your higher self and not getting worried that, people are judging you for meditating or something like that, or setting your intention, or believing in manifestations, or being in that state where you're rising above the situation and just saying, I don't consent to it, I don't agree. If you don't take that stance within your heart and say that I know that I can find something that makes more sense regarding my timeline, regarding the timeline of others, that I do make a difference. Each and every person makes a difference. There are those of us that can communicate further, have been doing this for a long time. If we're the ones that have to bring up the ideas for you to take and make your own, create and add to it and do whatever you need to do, this is the time to do it. Now, I'm not saying anything is urgent. The people that are living in France, their experience right now is urgent, and even some of the other nations surrounding it. If it's happening in France, it can happen somewhere else. It's just a reminder. And that we can send energy to support them, to help them to be strong, so that they will realize it's not easy to just take over a nation like that, snap a finger, and then everyone becomes subservient, part of a hive group, and hive-minded, and frightened, and willing to go along with every order. I mean, that's not the makeup of humanity.
No.
We're free thinkers. We're
Yep.
creative. We do well. We thrive in environments where we're treated in the proper way we're supposed to be treated. The government is supposed to be have a sense of caring and nurturing and growth regarding the people, not this, having everyone obey them and do your tedious work and follow orders and everything. I don't even understand the thinking behind that. I don't understand the thinking of these nations, these rulers that want to control people so much and try to predetermine their thoughts, and wow, that's really a strange concept. Why would you want to think through and try to micromanage every single human in your nation? That's bizarre.
Yeah, that is,
what's wrong with it? How distorted and twisted is that person? Or if they are even a person at this point, are they already a robot?
Yep.
Because then it
true.
becomes data. Everything's data.
Yeah.
It's making the machinery work. It's producing.
Well, they're planning on that hive mind, collective consciousness, right? They do it through the AI, androids, cyborgs. I mean, even through all these geopolitical, whatever that's happening here. It's they all have that same thing in common. They want everyone to be able to think as one, and of course, they need to be connected to something higher. That of course will be in charge of all that. For all the humans to think the same way and be able to control them. Their biggest fear is that humans realize one day, wake up and ask, wait a minute, I don't consent to this. I'm a divine sovereign being. I don't need any power on others. That's never been my goal. I know it's not mine. I don't want anybody's, I don't want zero power on anyone. I mean, that's, and I know you too, Jess. I mean,
No,
for me,
because
it's so
real humans have their own experience. They understand.
Yes.
They have a family. They understand that others are going through their experience. It's levels of compassion and understanding
Yes.
and caring.
Mm.
If you are that disenfranchised in your thinking and you are that bitter and that harsh, I shouldn't be in rulership in the first place. You shouldn't even be running your own family if you have that type of attitude, let alone anyone else's children or family members or any community or anything of that nature. You know, there are people that are not equipped to be over anyone because they can't even manage their own life. And I'm not just saying that they're irresponsible. I'm just saying that they're narcissistic or tyrannical and abusive.
Psychopath. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Not everyone gets a pass, and it's either now or later. Either way, it's kind of written in stone. You can't get away from that when you're on the earth. Everything in the earth retains all the laws that have been here since the beginning.
Yep.
Those beings that have been watching over us, like the Council of Five has been here from the inception of the introduction of the humanoids being here on the planet, and I don't know, I don't know exactly how long they've been here, but they've been here a very long time. And of course, they stand as observers to see what we're going to do. There are lots and lots of different scenarios that we have been presented with. The choice is really ours.
Exactly. There will be no saviors. That's for sure. Like,
we shouldn't be. Yeah. We shouldn't be looking for a savior.
No.
Yeah.
All these new age movements are asking for some extraterrestrial, play-ins, this and that to come.
The Great Escape.
Yeah.
The Great Run. Let's run away. Let's. I don't want to be here anymore. And they forgot. Well. I mean, I understand. I'm not being insensitive to the. I understand it's not easy. Some people have been targeted individuals. Some people have been felt very misunderstood here and have gone through deep sorrows for being here, especially starseeds. I understand where they're coming from.
Of course.
But they forgot that happened to them, so they would step out and not embrace the reason why they're here in the first place. And and if they don't do it now, then they'll probably very likely have to be returning to do it until it turns out the right way.
Exactly.
So I don't know if we went off on a tangent. I just got on my soapbox. I don't know what. Both of us are venting. We're like, I think this triggers everyone because you're sitting here looking and saying, what in the world's going on here? And then all these, little scenarios, or we won't say little scenarios, but big scenarios, we're seeing the shift of power moving from people that we thought would be around who are leaving, and then someone that we didn't expect to step up. Someone like Theresa May, I figured she would stick it out for a little while longer. But pressure was too great, and then Marine Le Pen kind of, stepped up into a position which was, I'd like to see what she does there.
It's a great chess game. I mean, they move all the peons and, based on the next step of the plan. But I was not surprised to hear about Theresa May. I was surprised that she was holding on for so long, but it's, obviously
but that's what they do, though. It's kind of par for the course. This is what they do.
Yeah. And it's not new. They've done that throughout history.
Right. It's kind of, they know the game. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it lightly. The political game, it's sort of a chess game. It's a match of the wits. in the match of the ego. I mean, you know how that kind of stuff steps in, and so when they, you know, they're usually very equipped. People that get into positions like this are very equipped and have been trained to deal with the political conflict and challenges. And even when nothing's going on, there's usually some kind of ego that's challenging and scenario that you know, you say one thing and then there's always going to be the opposition. But
going back to France, I'm trying to figure out where we were. I lost track here.
Well, I know. Well, with the Marine Le Pen, it's funny because I recently did a regression with Jennifer, and kind of the name came up. Some really interesting things came out of that regression. If you haven't listened to it, I was pretty shocked. And you know, I mean, typically someone does a private session, it doesn't go out there. But in this case, I thought there was some very, very intriguing and revealing information. So, you know, you'll see that.
I heard that. Yeah, I listened to it. It was definitely very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But what I see to all these different reports that you do, you know, and the session that we do, we start to remove layers and layers of all these, you know, power controls and illusions and manipulation and magic and all these things, layer by layer. We start to remove all these veils and getting slowly to the very core of those who are behind the curtain, controlling all these different things going on here.
Right, so I wanted to ask you now, the other day you contacted me and said you woke up, you heard an explosion.
Yeah. And it happened in that state, you know, when you're between dream and awake, right? Mm-hmm. And that's most of the time when I process and take information what's going on in the dream state.
But it seemed very real. You said you got up.
Oh, I mean, it happened not when I was awake. I was in between, and I heard that explosion. But the explosion is very typical explosion. It is not a boom that lasts like you have a thunder. You can hear it for like a few seconds. It was a blast that was very strong, very short in time, but very powerful. And I woke up thinking, holy shit, what's going on here? And I looked at the window, and it looked like it was happening, you know, really close to my window. And I was like, okay, is that something like a car exploding in the parking lot, or what's happening here? And everything was quiet. It was 8:30, 11, maybe 9 in the morning. Everything was quiet. And I was the only one, obviously, to go outside and check.
So you told me about this.
Mm-hmm.
And then we saw on the news that there was a bomb in Lyon, France, that went off with shrapnel, and people got injured, but nobody died.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting because you are very, very tuned in, and this is the type of stuff that I'm talking about. That some of the, not everyone is really connecting into what's happening over in France. And like I said, I'm not from France, but and I've been there before. I think it's a beautiful place. I feel. And I really, really strongly believe it's a pivotal region right now, because whatever happens from here is going to affect many, many people, many nations. Only because if they get away with it here, you know, it can happen anywhere, in my opinion.
No, you're right. I was surprised to see, you know, all these different factions trying to have a part of the pie in France. I mean, from Dionysus, Michael, Semiace, and so many others, Asmodeus, and all of these big players. And I was like, why are they all connected to France? What's going on with France? Then I heard about the New Jerusalem in France and all these things. So it seems to be a concentration in France. Why? I don't know yet. There is definitely, I had, some ideas that obviously, it might be all connected and going back in time to the Franks and before that to, with Charlemagne, and that brought pretty much coming from old Germania. It might just be that, but also the Hyperboreans behind that whole thing. I mean, it's this last 2,000 years has been pretty dense, and France has been the core of many things. That's where supposedly the human rights were signed, where a whole of history, writings, for example, also those who have changed in the 1600s. What was the name of that French Jesuit priest that changed the whole history of humanity?
I can't think of his name right now.
No. Well, yeah, jeez, blank.
We all.
But I mean, all the main players.
All right, let's take a pause. Let's take a pause. Let's get his name. Joseph Scaliger.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Scaliger was from France. Then we discover also different beings like writers, like Alexander Dumas or some actresses. I mean, it's like, it seems to be random, but when you start to go into the layers and see how it's connected, you realize that France has been a very hot spot throughout history. A lot of things started from France and spread out to Europe, and from Europe into the world.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about the Roman Empire and the Roman Catholic Church and of course Christianity, but I'm sure there are other regions in the world that are, obviously hotspots too. But France, for some reason, is really the center of a lot of things happening in Europe, the heart of Europe. This is why they, by the way, hit Notre Dame, the very heart of France.
The heart of the heart.
The heart of the heart.
So we have Magritte. We talked about Magritte. He was one example, because the creative innovation of like artwork and music and some I think, was it the discotheque stuff that came from that area?
From Belgium. No,
from Belgium?
That's coming from Belgium.
But it's close enough. But you know what I'm saying is
it's the same thing.
But what I'm saying is the discussion that we had about Magritte is that was related to time travel.
Yeah.
It was revealing that there was time travel activity going on, which brings them into a place where you feel this futuristic stuff, and also like the Triomphe de la Force, or how
de la Défense.
De la Défense. That's all right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I just completely I butchered that totally. So that's a very, very advanced looking part of the city. I mean, it's very futuristic looking.
It's a micro reality. I mean,
it is a micro reality.
It's not France anymore.
No, and that's what we were seeing Draxala.
Yep.
Which is, one of those species, those beings that have invaded our reality and is planning on, doing all sorts of stuff, particularly out of that region. France being, the specific area that they wanted to point out as the New Jerusalem, which fits well for the New World Order, and
which is right away connected to the Fourth or Fifth Reich. Some reason, I don't know. I just got that right now.
Yeah,
there's a connection between the two. I don't know which one yet, but
absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of different areas that you're getting the influences coming from. Completely could be from a whole different part of the world that's stirring this one area up, and and they're safe enough away to sit back and watch and see what's going to happen. It's like an experiment, and that's my impression. That this is an experiment, and to see where it's going to go. And so they're playing it out, seeing the human reaction about people being brutalized for peaceful protesting, and then how everyone is desensitized and not responding to that. I mean, all of these things are being observed.
Well, you said something interesting here, desensitized. the first act that happened the first weekend, people were shocked. But you see it every weekend. After a while, I mean, I wouldn't say you desensitize, but you feel you're less reactive to it after a while. And they're famous for that. They will do it over and over and over and over until it becomes, it's part of, normality.
It's normal for these people to be mistreated. Of course, we would never be treated that way. But, well, the French allowed that. And you can come up with all different kinds of ideas regarding, why people are in these situations. Now, I don't want anyone to say, oh, what are you saying, the French are the only ones that have been mistreated?
Of course not.
Of course not. No, I mean, we know. I mean, you see the refugees in Syria and what they went through. I mean, that was like shocking. Like, how can this happen? Are we not a civilized group? What in the world is going on? And some of the things I even talked about one of my shows, how they were talking about, it was like 3 levels deep, and there was an interview that I heard on the radio of this person that was a witness to it, and that they had been talking to many witnesses and kind of documenting what was going on over there in Syria, and how that there was like this underground prison where there's most horrific violations, human violations. People would just say, hey, I'm hurt, can I get looked at? And they would just, some would just show up and say, I'm the angel of death, my name's Azrael, and I'm going to kill you, or something. Like, just really bizarre, very, very bizarre, like a license to totally abuse humans. That's not, other humans don't do that. It's not normal.
No, it's not.
And they're in prison for just speaking, just talking about things.
Yeah, well, they're selling us a reality that's an illusion. Most of the people that go to work and have their families and watch television and see the world through the different news and what the medias are feeding them, like a bird. Mama bird is giving food to the babies, right? They open their mouth and boom, boom, boom. That's pretty much how it's happening here. And when you start to disconnect, disentangle, and work on yourself, you realize more and more there are so many different realities behind realities or within realities. It is not as simple as you were taught in school that it was, right? I remember when I was a kid.
If I stay out of it, then it won't affect me, or it's not my problem, it's their problem.
Yeah, and it's like a very safe zone, a comfort zone. You don't want to know too much. Might as well just keep, mind your business and continue working and I would say running on the treadmill like everybody else. My father always told me something. He says, everybody's like, the society is like a herd of sheep, and all the sheep have to have their head down. And if one ever look up and start to be like, wait a minute, what are we doing here? Where are we going? Start asking a question, it's going to be visible, and that's when the stick's going to hit you in the head. So it says, at the end of the day, it's important to never follow, the mass. If everyone is going one direction, stop and go the opposite direction. You might be safer. He was always telling me that when I was a kid. And it's kind of what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I might not agree with what I'm talking about here, by the way, but
no, I mean, it's being a free thinker, and there are times when there's power in the group, and there are times when you have to step away from the group to be able to really assess something properly. And I talk about Andronicus. Andronicus came and told us about a scenario that the Andromedans went through, where it's sort of this type of reptilian style of mind control, manipulation, and overthrow of the world, and essentially did that with them, because of their kindness and more openness. As a more benevolent, more evolved species are the Andromedans, and with the reptilians coming in and using mind control and subtle mind control very tactfully and tactive, having the plans and manipulation of what their end result would be, they ended up completely subduing all of the Andromedans to a point where they stripped them of all identity down to just a number. And so Andronicus said to me, you think that humans were considering this as a future reality to you? And they said, no, this is an echo, a memory of what we have already experienced. And you are getting it now. See, the galaxy is really, it's sort of like years ago, the New World, which was, when I say New World, I mean like the Americas, was considered the New World to the Europeans. And it was like this big gap, big distance. And now we're communicating daily, easily, with people from around the world without any thought. You know, it's very easy with the internet, the web, and so forth. Likewise, but this, even still, there's these ripples of communication that come galactically, and that's why people have ideas and knowledge, and wondering where this information comes from. Everyone says it's just God. They don't realize there's other civilizations already existing. So that information kind of flows in. It sort of comes in, it's subtle, and one person in China or Korea might get an idea, and another person in Australia gets an idea, and then another person in Kenya might get an idea. They all get the same idea. Idea drops into our field, and it's coming from elsewhere, right? Because these civilizations are working, but also their traumas, their wars, and other experiences also filter through here. So we get these really weird thoughts of like, well, what if this happened? What if that happened? But it's something that maybe doesn't even relate to us, but we take it in, embrace it. We don't even realize it because it's sort of in our field, and then have an expectation that it's going to manifest in some future reality. To the point where we actually manifest it. We begin manifesting it into our reality, and then, like the movies playing, we're going to get destroyed, we're going to get destroyed. And the scientists, yes, we're going to get destroyed. And you know what I mean? Before everyone's like, whoa, I guess we're going to get destroyed. Everyone else is saying it. And it's the point is, the Andromedans already went through this seemingly new world order. We don't have to go through it unless we choose to, and which in anyone in the right state of mind would not choose this. So they're saying, don't accept it and don't allow it to come in. That was our problem, doesn't have to be your problem.
I was wondering, it's also, there are so many star seeds on this planet, and of course, they have been on different planets before this one. If they're not holding, subconscious mind pretty much in their soul, all these memories as well. And pretty much It's easier for the other races to trigger these memories because you have them in your database pretty much, right? So I guess it's not like they're inserting all the time these information or realities. They're already there. You already had them in the past. They just need to trigger them through the media, to the movies, and make it sound like, and you feel like a feeling of deja vu, like, oh yeah, that's real, I know it, yeah. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, imagine, say someone that was Andromedan, then they incarnate here, and then they're getting triggered by a lot of things that are clearly reptilian on the planet. I mean, of course they're going to identify with it. They're going to know exactly what it is. It might even cause stress, trauma, and trigger other types of emotions and fear.
Yeah. No, and the same way happened in, let's say, just your incarnation here, and because I was working, and the Sedona technique and the release technique and all that, and I was observing some of these traumas I might have, for example, a few years ago, where I realized that the mind is just collecting all the information of all the experience you have had, for example, just for this lifetime, and repeating it and playing it like a playing recording device, right? Mm-hmm. And so, for example, you might go in a situation 10 years later that has nothing to do with what you experienced 10 years earlier, but suddenly it feels vivid, and all the information, all the experience, all the pain, all the sorrow, whatever you experienced at that time, is here and now alive, like you're
like
back.
It just happened. Yeah.
It just happened when it has nothing to do with it. So I was wondering, on a small scale, like it is here for example, in this lifetime, since we had many incarnations on the planet, but also off planet, this is why it makes sense for me that obviously, like you said, we have all these memories, and it's maybe easier for these non-humans, I would say, to trigger.
Absolutely.
Feelings.
I mean, there's a lot of dynamics here, but there's also a memory that we get through it. And the thing
Yes.
that the star seeds bring in is they might remember the traumas, but they also remember that they're eternal souls. And so
Yes.
they have more of an awareness that the physical body is a vessel that, transports them from life into death, but death is not a permanent thing, and that it is just a transition to another experience. And they understand that, and some of them, choose to actually be an etheric body later on, and don't, want to be in a physical form. But many of them want to be in a physical form as well, but they understand what it is. And I think the scariest thing for those that don't remember what this is the fear of the unknown.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that goes for a lot of things. Sometimes it's scarier, like, the way a child reacts to what's in the closet, the boogeyman in the closet. It's the unknown of what's ahead is something that you can't mentally prepare for. But if you have your deeper connection, then everything else around you has, it's an experience. We understand what it is. But you also know that regardless of anything, that you have, your soul exists. So no one can really take anything from you.
No, and that's, I guess, the challenge for most of these star seeds is to, I will say, for example, myself here, for the longest time of my life, I was identifying myself as Chris, right? The guy from Europe, and with my family, school, this, that. I was part of this reality. And then you start to realize that something is off. Then this is why I was starting to look into these different, I looked externally, that I paid a price for that, when I realized that, all I have to do really is to go within. And by going within and disentangling with all that is not you, or, originally you, you also tap into that memory of yours when you can change things without, I wouldn't say moving a finger, but I mean just by intention and projection of a certain, how you want that reality to be seen, to be experienced in the future. Like you said, we can choose, humans can choose what direction they want to be in the next 20 years, right? What type of reality they want to experience. And I have a feeling that some of these star seeds are here also bringing that information, pretty much not engaging into these dramatic, of course, probabilities, but into bringing a choice of a different type of experience that can be an experience where everything is solved when you're free, where all these dark dominions don't have any power anymore, and where Earth can be definitely take its place, and the humans take their place, in the galactic families.
A few years back, when Obama was leaving office, someone presented some information. I'm not 100% sure whether it was true or not, but I thought it was quite interesting, where Obama was literally planning on invading Russia, which would have triggered a World War IV. World War III.
Mm.
And
Interesting
I'm jumping
you said
ahead. That's kind of weird.
No, that was interesting. You said World War IV, and that means there is a World War III going on, but not the way we're thinking it.
Right. So, but I remember looking at that saying, people were saying, well, something's going to happen this September, and it's kind of, this is supposed to happen, and everyone got really hyped up about it. And I said, I don't think it should happen. And of course, then I got ignored. And so they were like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, because, this is supposed to, we're on the inside. We know exactly what's supposed to happen. And it never happened. It literally never happened. And I see a lot of these events that people are anticipating in, like, really horrible, destructive events, and they're all excited. That's something, they don't even know why they're excited. I'm like, well, you mean you're excited that, like, some kind of comet is going to hit us, or this planet X is going, you know what I mean? It's really, really negative stuff. They don't perceive it, but they just need to be right about it. And I want people to just, like, let's get out of ego and let go and stop projecting really horrible things on the planet. And let's be more unified in a sense of let's select like a higher intention, the highest intention for humanity. Don't be dogmatic over these things. It's senseless. It's part of a program.
You said the right thing here. Let go of the ego, like they say. Let go, let God. Meaning, let go of all these thoughts and programs and attachment, and just let the divine source within you, tell you what to do, because at the end of the day, we can change everything. Literally, I remember, isn't it Andronicus that was saying that we could literally, and I wouldn't say overnight, but if all the humans had a clear intention to be free together as one, it would change everything within a very short time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would be like a major shift. I mean, you can do that within yourself.
Yeah.
If you have an intention, there are different modalities and processes where you can, like even Sedona method, like you mentioned earlier. If you choose to do some personal work, you can enhance your experience on the planet. You can learn the things that you need to learn. Just by doing certain processes and understanding certain things, releasing, and literally seeing how it changes the dynamic of your life. And so you have a large group of people in agreement, not forced, not in a hive mind, but realizing that this is another way to do it. And so you're shifting that whole experience into a positive. When I say ego, I think there's a tendency for humans, and I'm not going to say I'm excluded from that, but there's a tendency to say, I believe that's going to happen, and you don't know how to walk away from it and accept that maybe it doesn't happen, or be okay that it doesn't happen. I've seen things in the future that I felt were going to happen, but I'm glad they didn't. I don't need to be right. I don't need to prove that I can predict the future or something like that, because if predicting the future means that whatever is the experience at this current time means that something bad's going to happen in the future, I don't want to embrace what's that bad that's going to happen in the future. I want the higher good, and so I would rather be wrong and let go of
free.
it.
Yeah, say rather be right, or you rather be free. It's one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that I think there are the doomsayers, and then those that feel like they want to be on top of the game regarding what's going on in the governments and their decisions. But
you go back to fear. I mean, it's a powerful thing. You know, fear,
Mm-hmm.
F-E-A-R, false evidence that appears to be real. It's really what it is. It sells right. It sells a lot. People love to. It's almost like, and I was wondering the same thing while we were talking. It seems that, you know, humanity sometimes have a tendency to be very excited about everything that's morbid. It seems to be a program, I guess, but to always think of the worst. Never think, hey, wait a minute, I don't need to experience this. What about I choose maybe what type of experience I would like to have? I would like to, you know, maybe focus on intent on this type of manifestation. That sounds better for me.
Yeah. I see people do that in romance a lot. You know, it's almost like the tragic love. And like you said, it's a part of a program, and, you know, you find the right person, you know, finally in your life, and then something like they die, you know, and this is like really weird scenario that you and it's a manifestation. But where did that program come from? Because it's not a normal one. It might have been somewhere in the subconscious that it was an experience that they had in a previous life, or a certain person that they knew, that they know in this life, and they knew from a previous life, and that person might have died young, and they went through a trauma over it, and then they're expecting to relive it, but they're not aware of it because it's in their subconscious, because they don't remember the history, but they remember the emotion. That's the whole, you know, Sedona method concept, and the emotions and the triggers that we see from, you know, the Akashic records, personal Akashic records, and our own history. But there is something that we embrace about that, almost like it was kind of like even more powerful love than anything, because it's love in loss, right? So I think that's the whole thing of the war is, well, we don't have a lot of work and not a lot of industry in our government, and things aren't going very bad, but our youth we're going to encourage them all to go in the military, and, you know, so that it becomes like a career, or it becomes, you know, then they have another type of purpose. But there could be other creative ideas, and I'm not saying, you know, protect and defend and all that is a bad thing. It's just that sometimes with an absence of one thing, that they need to fill it with something else, because war has been something in the back of human history, in the minds of everyone.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Expectations of conflict.
Well, because I guess we have so many incarnations where we have experiences of those type of things, so it becomes pretty much a normality.
Yeah.
Which is not correct. I mean, at the end of the day, at any time you can shift everything and say, you know what, I draw the line in the sand here. I'm not going for this anymore. I had enough of this. How many times do I have to experience it over and over and over the same thing? It doesn't work for me. So let's do something different.
Let's do something different. I think that's the key right there.
Yeah. Yep.
And you know, if anything, that the show, I know that we kind of went into a whole different place, sort of, but it is related to the original topic. So we always talk about what the problem is, as if, you know, we're discussion about the news, but in the end, coming up with different ideas and perspectives of how to manage and think about these type of situations, and rethink and be more creative.
Well, it's like in naturopathy, okay? It's almost like, as long as you don't know the cause of the problem, you cannot fix it. If you just treat the symptoms, you will never treat the cause. So, I mean, the sickness is still there. It's kind of what we're doing here. We talk about, you know, we talk about, yes, obviously the situation that's going on in France, but it's to go a little deeper than that. But when I see all these things personally, I'm asking myself, okay, so how do I feel about all this? Well, it's not right what's going on here. So, okay, so what do I want to do about this? Do I want to feed it? Do I want to, you know, continue to feed that whole traumatic situation over there, or maybe draw a line in the sand and say, you know what, I don't consent to this. And I realized that I have the power to change things and think differently, create something new. Why do we have to go and follow these agendas over and over and over? It's like a loop that never ends. That's not the program. I've done it so many times. It's enough now. It's like if your car has a problem, you bring it to the mechanic, and the mechanic fix something else. It doesn't fix the problem. Are you going to bring the car to the same mechanic over and over and over, or eventually you're going to be like, well, you know what? That's not working for me.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to think of something different here. And so, as much as it seems very traumatic what we're talking about here and the experience that we live as human, in the same time, I sometimes have the strong feeling that this is a very powerful experience we go through, when you can literally reach a point where you can go within and find something that for such a long time you haven't been able to touch. It's your real own power, your divine power within, where the world outside really doesn't exist. It's just a projection of the perception of the world within you through your experiences, your memories, in different incarnations, or maybe even experience you had on other planets. But at the end of the day, you're the creator. What you focus on, you will see. So if you focus on the problem, on the drama and the wars and this and that, well, guess what? You feed it. You feed the beast.
We are all a part of this experience.
Exactly.
All of us.
Exactly. And I think it's fascinating. It sounds strange, I'm going to say, but I think it's a fantastic experience we're going through here. I don't regret a bit of it. I mean, I've never been as happy in my life, even if, Jess, I'm going through some struggles here and there.
Yes.
But I've never felt more alive and close to the divine within me than in this time.
And I think that challenges like this help us to rise above and be able to learn, understand, and perceive things from another perspective.
Exactly.
And be grateful that, we're in a position that we can have this discussion, that we're not right in the heat of it. But also that means that we need to send our support, our emotional support, our information, and share the information with many other people as you can, to make people more aware, and to hold the intention. We have a meditation group. They say to me, hey, let's do something for the planet. Let's all be in agreement, something positive in the planet.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's wonderful. We are in a position of power. I mean, I've never felt much in a position of power than now. My whole life I lived like, I don't know, I was asleep, completely asleep. But I realize now I'm so grateful to be able to experience what we experience, even if, it's not always easy every day. But I realize more and more that I have the power within to change things. It's something that I forgot for many incarnations, I guess. It's a wake-up call, and it's wonderful.
But we are at a pinnacle right now of something very great if we embrace it.
Yes.
And what I would like to do is let's all have like a minute of silence. We're all going to set an intention with me, and with Chris, and with the French people, that they will be protected and safe. Let's set an intention that whatever chaos and things that are happening in Europe, in the United States, in Russia and China, and some of the major powers of the world, will settle down, will neutralize. Let's just set an intention that humanity learns and grows from this experience, and then bring in your variation of how you perceive it that will make the world a better place in this circumstance. So let's have a moment of silence set an intention in a unified way, and expect a positive outcome for the highest intention for humanity as a whole, as Andronicus would say. Okay? All right. I didn't want to have it for too long. I know that we're on air. And I really felt like Rodan was there supporting us, hearing us. That was very, very powerful.
Yes.
And I'm sure he'll be there. He's, watching over and assisting as well. Whatever your belief system is, I think it's wonderful. Believe whatever you choose to believe. Use it in a positive way. So, with that said, Chris, any last thoughts?
No. I feel very happy. It's strange. I feel very happy. It's really good.
Okay, perfect. Well, looking forward to hearing your comments. Thank you for your support. The people are awesome. I'm grateful that you're here, and grateful that the work that many of you are doing as well. You are appreciated and loved, and we love you very much.
Yes, we do.
Continue to provide you the information when information comes in. Thank you for your support in many different ways.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jessica, and everything's gonna be all right.
Everything's gonna be all right.
Everything's gonna be all right.
Well,
all right. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye for now, everyone. Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Chris.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Androna Talks Radio. Join us on YouTube channel Jessica Ariel Morocco, and visit her website at www.readingsbyariel.com.